to show you the secret on how to play fast. This George Benson technique really changed how I play the guitar and allowed me to play at pretty much whatever tempo I want to play at now. Let's get into it. So the secret to George Benson's amazing speed lies in his picking. There are of course tons of ways to pick the guitar in all different kinds of styles, but if you work on this specific style, you'll be able to increase your speed and have really great fluency and play lines kind of like this one. The picking I just showed you can be broken down into a couple of key elements. The first is that upstrokes in this style are used to change strings, while downstrokes are used to propel our line forward. So for example, let's take this exercise. So for this first exercise, you'll notice that our first note, G, is a down pick, and our pick falls into the next string instead of floating out. It goes down into the next string. That's called a rest stroke. Now our next note, A, is an up pick. And now you'll notice that when we do the up pick, our picking hand is free to move around. It's not stuck. Like when we do a down pick, we have to go over the string in order to change strings. But when we do an up pick, we can move around freely with that picking hand. Versus you have to lift it over. I would recommend doing this picking exercise until it feels comfortable. Now let's turn this picking exercise into an actual line. Here it is slow. So the next element of George's picking can be shown with this next exercise. So this exercise has two downstrokes now that flow into each other, kind of like sweep picking, but just going down. So instead, like before we have up, down, this time we have down, down. And you'll notice each one flows into the next string as a rest stroke. So what this does is allows us to change the strings now with a downstroke. So make sure, like we did with the last exercise, to practice this motion until it starts to feel comfortable. Now doing this opens up a lot more doors now. Check it out. Let's make a line now out of this exercise. Here it is, slow. This line uses the same idea as before, but now we incorporate this downward picking, sweeping pattern, which lets us further change strings and make it a little bit more flexible, this pattern. So George likes to take this picking pattern, being the one we just did, down, 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 up, and he likes to apply that to triads on the guitar neck, but starting on the upstroke instead, so we have up, down, 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 and then up again. That might sound something like this. So doing this pattern can be useful to navigate through the neck and get from a high area to a low area, or vice versa. Let's see what it sounds like when we add it to our first line from this lesson, and you'll see it's kind of a cool effect. Here it is slow. Here's one more line that uses all the elements of George's picking that we covered thus far. So the next component to George's picking deals with hammer-ons and pull-offs. These are used in helping to aid when we change the strings. So for example, let's take this nice 5-to-1 line closer. Sounds great, right? So now you could play this just with alternate picking, of course, but then it might not be as efficient. So if we did this line with just our normal alternate picking, you'll notice that when we get to the F, that we're on a downstroke, and it's gonna be inefficient. So what we do is we put a pull-off on the note before we change strings. In this case, it's F sharp, and that allows our pick to be in an upstroke, so then we can continue on a downstroke for the string change. Here's this line closer in context with a line, of course using George Benson's picking. So whenever you're creating lines using George's picking style, you'll probably run into lines like this, where needs to be an upstroke when it's a downstroke. Remember that hammer-ons and pull-offs can fix that problem. Here's another example of a line that uses hammer-ons and pull-offs. So the thing that you want to remember about this picking, or any picking really, is that they're tools to be used, and of course you might gravitate towards one of these, but think about them as ways that you can enhance your playing rather than just completely change it. To close this lesson, I want to play one chorus over an F blues, and I'm going to use all the lines that we worked on in this lesson. If you want the PDF to this etude, as well as all the PDFs for this lesson, and the guitar profile, the music XML file, as well as the audio from the etude so you can slow it down and practice along, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon, which you can find linked in the video description below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video about George Benson's picking. I really think this is useful to know. Even if you don't use it a bunch, it is important to think about your picking in this kind of way, and I really think it can transform your playing like it did mine. If you guys like this kind of lesson and you want to see some more picking or technical lessons, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to let me know that you like this. Also, I want to give a shout out to Steve Kowalczyk, who showed me a lot of this information and is probably one of the best guitarists on the planet. So you can catch his newest record, Ghost Orchid, which I'll link in the video description below. I'd highly recommend you check that out. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always keep swinging.